Hi, I wanted to talk to you about something I like to call stand-in chats. Now, I like to think that I invented this, but probably not, knowing that pretty much nothing in education is brand new. It's all been shared or learned or adapted or whatever. But stand-in chats, how I use them, I have an example for you here, is I would use them as a way to break up a longer segment when I, the teacher, was talking. And so I knew that I wanted, for this particular unit, a Civil War, I wanted to talk about some of the major battles, and I wanted to expose students to that in a way that was a little more succinct than showing them some kind of longer documentary or what have you. And so I decided to take a couple of 50-minute class periods and dedicate it towards this. However, I knew I did not want my students to have to sit the entire time. That serves no good purpose. We all know that students can sit for about 20 minutes at a time and listen and engage actively, and then after that their brains turn to mush just like anybody's would, because no one can really actively engage in listening for that long a time without movement. So there have been brain scans and all kinds of stuff that show that. Anywho, so I had students have a map, and then on the other side they were also doing some things. But what I really want to show you is I integrated a couple of critical thinking routines before I thought, and then at the end of this whole shebang, we've got now I think. All right, so after exposure to all these battles and all this information and, thinking about the map and the locations and the resources and the deaths and all those sorts of things, what are their impressions after learning about some of these major battles? So anywho, what I did is I had some information for students that I shared right off the bat, and then I had stand-in chat number 1. Now, this was an open-ended question that students could get up and they could respond in a variety of ways. Ideally, they would refer back to some of the content that I had just shared with them. And then, after they were supposed to stand, lock eyes with someone across the room, move to that person, think for a moment about their response, and then start to discuss. And then after time was up, I would just ask a few students around the room, well, what did you discuss today? Or what did you or your partner have to say about this? And so on. And after taking 3 or 4 responses, I'd tell them to go back to their seats, and then we would resume. And it really we wound up with some really rich discussion. And students got the chance to move around, to talk to some different people. I made it so that they had to have a different partner every single time. And then also that, of course, like I was talking about with that movement, it was super important to get that brain reactivated and engaged. So that way they weren't sitting for too terribly long. Went through some more information. Okay, so battle 1, battle 2, battle 3, right? And then here's stand-in chat number 2. So you can see that this was probably around the 20-minute mark, maybe a little less, for them to go ahead and get up. And again, it's an open-ended question or a this or that kind of question, and then they had to discuss, well, which one is more important? Same again, 4, 5, 6, boom, stand-in chat number 3. How important is morale? All right, and so on. So if you decide to use this technique, I would say limit your talk time to 15 to 20 minutes at most, and then have a tantalizing question in there for students to discuss, where they get to take some time to think it through and use some of the information that you've provided, but then also to bring in their own experiences or awareness or prior knowledge or whatever. I found that as a teacher of U.S. history, there were a lot of students who were really Civil War buffs, and they knew a lot more than I did about certain events, but this gave them an opportunity also to share some of those details with us. So stand-in chat number 4, what's fair in war and what is not? And then ending again with that before I think, or before I thought, now I think routine. I hope you found this to be helpful, and if you have any questions, please let me know.